So, today we're going to dive into something which is kind of known really well um, in the Hinduism type of culture, and but it's mostly expressed in the Buddhism. You find this very much present there because it tends to be like a more of a deeper focus um, in that direction. So, samskaras, right? So generally samskaras is your patterning. So what is a patterning? So the patterning is all of the unconscious behaviors. So even the conscious behaviors as well. So if you're looking into terms of a more of a modern day definition that is applicable to the modern age that we currently live in now, it's basically your programming. So if you have a computer and the computer obviously cannot function without software, you have to load some software in. Software is basically written instructions that is given to a hardware specific device where that device uses a software to function and run, and you can run applications and programs and things like that. So your software in this case, how it's applicable to you as a person, you are the software. So you are the programming itself. And this programming that you are is kind of also self-created because it's a meaning that you have given to everything. So for instance, if I have a book here, right? So I know that this is called a book because I have learned that this is called a book. I didn't create the word, right? But where the creation actually happens of the word is when you digest that, you give it a meaning that this is called a book. So next time you see this, you say like, this is a book. If you pick up a different object or you come across a different object like this here, you'll say, this is a scissors. So like this, you go about identifying everything, male, female, and this part of the structure is designed for survivability. You can't live without this. You have to be able to identify things in reality, otherwise your living organism, which is the body itself, will die and perish. So it is important to know that behind me, this is a wall. I can't run into the wall because I will get hit into the wall and my body will get injured. So in that sense, it's there. So it can be, a spiritual awakening can be very dangerous for an individual if they lose complete sense of this ability to navigate in the world. Now, can that actually happen? Yes, it can happen, but it doesn't happen so frequently. It's maybe for very few rare cases it does happen and people become insane or they lose their mind and stuff, because insanity and spiritual awakening is there's a thin borderline in between that there. So coming back to the software, right? So the samskaras, right, these unconditional patterns. So why is it important to, let's say, remove these samskaras in your daily life? Because they can become hindrances on your path. Let's just say, for instance, if you want to kind of become a multi-millionaire. Now, these unconditional patterns from your childhood can keep throwing out thought patterns that you unconsciously don't see that I am not the mind. So you blindly follow and believe everything that your mind throws at you because you don't see that your mind, it's not you. So because you don't see that there, every single negative kind of programming that will prevent you from moving in that direction, maybe not becoming a multi-millionaire, but moving in the direction to achieve wealth itself, that programming that's there can hinder your progress because the thought that's actually been thrown out may not necessarily be true. The mind is known to, protect this programming. It's built in a way because the moment the programming comes to an end, the mind also goes out as well with it. So some of the sages and saints and stuff, they speak of something called no mind, experiencing absolutely no mind, absolutely stillness of mind. So once that programming is you're kind of free from that programming internally, that's it. It's the samskaras is generally free. Now, when you awaken when you have an awakening experience, if it does happen in your life, you have something called sadhana, which is basically spiritual practice, which can be meditation or maybe yoga or just sitting and watching the sunset. It can be even the small form. May not necessarily be something that your mind thinks it may actually be. Anything can be a spiritual practice. So when you have this kind of spiritual practice, it kind of allows you to create a little gap and a little opening into that. If awakening happens before awakening, there's a sadhana, which is a lot of doing, a lot of action that has to be taken, and by doing and taking a lot of action, that eventually can lead to awakening. And awakening is in Zen, it's said to be by doing practices and doing, it can be accidental, right? So awakening is an accident. It's not something that you can control, because the consciousness, which is you, that is beyond the character itself, that is in the one in control. So you don't really control anything. After awakening, that is a process of simply recognizing that true internal nature. So can samskaras still be there after awakening? Yes, the samskaras can still be there after awakening. And as you progress in life, what actually happens is you met with obstacles, you met with challenges, you met with even more destructive things than before you had an awakening process. And the reason why that happens is because the thick layers of the samskaras, the thick layers of the unconditional patterning, that has a hole in it. So it's kind of leaking. So it's leaking. So as this leak is happening, more things may manifest in your reality, in your external reality and your internal reality. That means your inner experience. So how can we kind of clear this samskaras? One powerful way of how you can actually clear the samskaras is by going for something called a Vipassana retreat. So a Vipassana is basically designed as a container for no escape for the mind and ego. So it's designed, the whole purpose of Vipassana is designed so it creates a certain point, in a breaking point, so that it creates a cessation, so complete stopping of the you pattern, the you software. So basically it's like you can look at it as like a virus intercepting that software that's there, and it's destroying that software for a split moment. And in that little window that kind of gets opened in that there, where there's a cessation of the samskaras and the whirlpool and of the mind, in that there is kind of a liberation experience. There's some may call it a samadhi or a oneness experience, or being established in yoga. So in that there, it creates a little opening. So that is one way, right? Another way of actually doing it, it is kind of important that one actually, for once in their life, do a Vipassana retreat, so you can kind of see what I'm saying. Now, if you are faced with anything in life, let's say for instance you don't like going to a certain place, you don't like meeting certain people, you don't like hanging out with your family and things like that. If you tend to do all of those things that you don't like, that software that is strongly built now starts to disintegrate. Now, the reason why you don't like going for those things is because simply your mind is resisting and the ego is resisting that. It's trying to keep control. So the more it tries to keep control, the more you suffer in life. So the more you kind of allow the crumbling of that which is trying to control everything, trying to hold and trying to grasp and trying to direct your life in a certain way, then you find out that what actually is a result of this here is the mind and the ego trying to control your life experience, and it never really is in control. So anything that you resist, basically, so any resistance in life, an enlightened being is described as an enchi in Zen. An enchi is like a circle. A circle is a shape that has the least amount of resistance. So anything that is resisting is the mind, and is coming from the mind and from the ego and from the false I, from the false sense of that what you are not. So if you move in that direction to the things that where there is resistance, you'll find out that is actually the doorway to liberation. That is the doorway to cracking the samskaras. So once you find that out and you start to experience it, so you've got to get experience for this to kind of see it. So even if, like, so say for instance, you are feeling lazy, you're feeling lethargic, you don't want to do anything, unmotivated, just do something that is not something that you would kind of do in your daily pattern. So if you don't like doing anything on a weekend or a Friday night, just do it and find out what happens internally to that energy that was making you kind of feel like depressed, down, tired, or whatever it may transmute to as. That's one way of breaking, that's another way of breaking the samskaras. The other way is, whatever life experience comes your way, whatever challenges, maybe it may be in a form of a test that you are taking, an interview that you're going for, maybe somebody always starts an argument with you, whatever it is, you will tend to feel a certain sensation arise from within yourself. The moment that sensation arises from within yourself, if there's a suppression of that, if there's a pushing down of that, that same energy kind of manifests in a different form. So you kind of met with the same obstacle, same form, again and again and again, in continuously in life, and you wonder why life is moving in these cycles. The moment you start realizing that life is moving in the cycles, is because it's becoming more into your awareness that, wait a minute, nothing's really changing. The form may change, but the storyline of how life is progressing stays the same. It stays constant. So what you do in that moment is, whatever feeling may arise within the body, whether it's uncomfortable, anger, depression, sadness, and whatnot, if you allow yourself, within yourself, to have a full, complete experience, 100% complete experience, you don't resist anything, you don't resist any emotion, any feeling that arises, any pain, you just completely accept it as it is, fully experience it, have a full, complete experience of it, you will start to see that that energy kind of transmutes itself, and those unconditional patterns, those unconscious patterns, the condition and the unconditional, they start to tend to transmute itself and be released from your body, physically be released from your body. And if you do this continuously in life, this can be a spiritual practice. When it actually comes in, is in the moment of life. If you go for Vipassana retreat, or you go for a spiritual practice, or you go live in an ashram and things like that, it may not be, those samskaras may not really come up. The real samskaras, the true core samskaras, where the root causes are, is in life, in daily life, in moving through daily life, not by isolating yourself. That is where the real stuff comes, because every single individual on this planet is all connected to that one single consciousness. And that is the other lesson as well. I am not separate from anything. So when you transmute your samskaras that happen within yourself, every single person that is kind of connected to you also will automatically have their samskaras also transmuted as well, because now the way how you respond to life completely changes on a different scale. This is kind of moving from the cycles out of the cycles, basically. So you're becoming free, and you'll tend to feel that you are moving through life with the least amount of resistance, and you're actually more joyful, more happy, more blissed out as you continuously go through this process. Now this process, if you ask in the mind, ask how long does it take and stuff, that is from the mind, it's resistance. The mind is complete resistance. If you just start doing a simple thing just every single day or whenever, these samskaras actually come up, the sensations come up within the body, then you tend to, have a direct experience. And then once you have the direct experience, that becomes your spiritual practice.